There are few things that nearly all nations, all cultures can agree on. Concepts of marriage and the family structure, having respect for the dead, and putting foods between pieces of bread. The sandwich, whether for convenience or enjoyment of workers, kids, or just some guy in England playing cards, is a concept known the world over in some form or another. But not all things are created equal. In fact, many of them are fucking terrible. But we won't know which ones are which until we tier that shit. This is the definitive sandwich tier list. I'll be taking as many sandwiches as I can find and rating them based on how I've experienced them. So I'm sorry if you know somewhere in Hoboken that does the world's best pork roll sandwich, because this rating is based on what's available to everyone, the average. Starting us off, we have the bacon, egg, and cheese. And isn't it convenient when the name tells you everything that's in it? Known and beloved most everywhere, but most notably in food carts and bodegas across Manhattan, there are many iterations of this sandwich, the best of which, at least for me, comes on toasted white bread, which isn't too chewy and thus provides contrast between the softness of the egg and cheese and the crispness of well-cooked bacon. And how well and how recently that bacon was cooked is going to determine whether the sandwich is any good. But since most places don't cook bacon to order, I've had way more bad bacon, egg, and cheese than I've had good. At its absolute peak, the bacon, egg, and cheese has the potential to be an A, but because it rarely reaches that, it's gotta go in the B tier. The meatball sub. Oh man, now I'm really gonna hurt myself, because the meatball sub is great when it's great. Unfortunately, that's basically never. Tender meatballs, a good tomato sauce, parmesan, and mozzarella cheese on a good Italian roll is outstanding. But most of the sandwich's representations in the world consists of frozen meatballs, jarred marinara, and rubbery cheese on a cheap sub roll that starts disintegrating the moment you pick it up, which is what keeps it in the D tier. The hoagie. No, not the Italian sub. An Italian sub is some fake bullshit you got from Subway or Jimmy John's. I'm talking about a hoagie, and if the place you're getting it from calls it a hoagie, they probably know how to make one. An Italian roll, which is not a baguette, that might have sesame seeds, might not, and is piled high with a variety of cured meats, or we could also count tuna canned in oil, tons of fresh veggies, a generous shake of salt, pepper, and dried oregano, and a drizzle of oil. I like mayo, but if you don't, that's cool, and maybe some red wine vinegar, and there you have it. Now for me, the key to a good hoagie is to wrap it in paper and let it sit for a minute. Even if you're ready to eat it, just slow down. Let that bad boy chill while tightly wrapped. You'll thank me. As for the hoagie, not an Italian sub, a truly remarkable sandwich and an easy S tier. The grilled cheese, a stone-cold classic from school cafeterias, hospital cafeterias, your mom, or when you're tired and don't have a lot of food in the house. When I think of the better grilled cheese experiences I've had, they've all involved dunking it into a cup of tomato soup, which, sorry, we're judging the sandwich, not the sandwich and some accompanying accoutrement. To me, a bad grilled cheese isn't that far off from a good one, so while it's never terrible, it's also never truly great. It is the definition of an average sandwich, C tier. The BLT. I think the BLT is severely underrated, and if you haven't had one made with some good summer tomatoes, then you simply haven't had one. And unlike a bacon, egg, and cheese, the sort of places that serve BLTs are places that have enough pride to make good bacon. So I can confidently place the BLT in, no, it's not that great. How about a high B? The PoBoy. Most people think of this as a sandwich that contains shrimp, but it's more of a genre of sandwiches that can contain fried shrimp, fried oysters, fried catfish, roast beef, anything really. Essentially, it is to a baguette what a hoagie is to an Italian roll, and they're pretty good. Not hoagie tier, but definitely up there, a solid A tier. The egg salad sandwich, a staple of disappointing lunches and British high tea. Okay, so take deviled eggs and slap them between two pieces of plain white bread, and you know what? I can't even finish that sentence without slapping this into the D tier. Sloppy Joe, another cafeteria / stay-at-home mom classic. I have never had one of these that actually tasted like beef. It's just sugar and ketchup and more sugar. Gross. In the half century since its inception, no one has come along and tried to redeem this monstrosity because it isn't worth saving. F tier. The torta is basically everything you love about tacos, but nestled inside telera bread, a light, starchy round loaf with a loose crumb. Not unlike an oversized hamburger bun, but not as terrible as that makes it sound. It's a great vessel for all the things you love in tacos or burritos, only it doesn't suck and you get to retain your dignity and not spill shit all over the goddamn place. Personally, I wish these were more popular than they are, but also, I wish many of the places that serve them understood proportions better, because they are usually very stingy with what goes into them. C tier. The French dip, which is not French and consists of thinly sliced roast beef, onions, and provolone, nestled within pieces of French bread and served alongside a cup of beef consomme, into which you were to dip your sandwich. And if you think this sounds like something that was invented during the Depression, you'd be right. And this is going straight into F tier because a sandwich should never require extracurricular activities. It should only be as simple as putting it into your face. If the sandwich needs something else to flavor it, well, you should have found a way to put it in the sandwich. No, I don't want to make my bread soggy while bits of it fall out. Ham and cheese. Blech. Gross. Easy F tier. Deli ham is mostly salt and water, so if somebody makes you a ham and cheese sandwich, they probably don't love you. The absolute worst deli meat by a country mile. Get the fuck out of here. The Thanksgiving sandwich. Ugh. A Thanksgiving sandwich apparently is when you take whatever you have left over from Thanksgiving and make sandwiches out of it. Now, I grew up in a household that didn't waste food, but my folks would take the leftover turkey and, make soup out of it. So, is this actually a thing? My only experience with it was that episode from Friends that isn't funny because Friends isn't funny. I've also had the one from Wawa called the Gobbler, and another one that's kind of famous called the Bobby from Capriati's, and yeah, it's not good. The addition of stuffing means putting wet bread on bread and then putting gravy on wet bread on bread, which is completely insane when you think about that. I appreciate its ingenuity and dedication to not wasting anything, but gross, F tier. Croque monsieur or croque madame. Ham, Gruyere cheese, and Dijon mustard on bread that's topped with a bechamel sauce and cheese before baked, and possibly adding an egg on top. Not a sandwich. The sandwich conceptually is the idea of putting foods between bread so you can conveniently pick them up and eat them. You can't pick these up, therefore they aren't sandwiches. The Italian beef/roast beef sandwich, an art form lost to most of this world outside of Chicago, parts of New Jersey, and some blue-collar areas of Philadelphia. It's the kind of sandwich that you take one bite of and find out that you joined a pipe fitters union and don't know when, why, or how. An old-school classic, B tier. The Turkey Club, an American diner staple. A sandwich that consists of turkey, ham, sometimes both, BLT, mayo, and an extra piece of bread for some reason. Then it's cut into 4 wedges, also for some reason. This sandwich has fallen on some hard times, as the only places you find them are likely serving the geriatric crowd. It also suffers from the frequently bad bacon. I imagine that this will not get better, and in years to come, the Turkey Club will go the way of liverwurst and onions. And for good reason, because it's just a turkey bacon sandwich with an unnecessary slice of bread. D tier. And speaking of American diner samples, the Tuna Melt, which, unlike the Turkey Club, is an American treasure that should never go out of style. Because, like America itself, it brazenly breaks all the rules of food you can think of to create something beautiful. Fish and cheese? Check. Warm mayo? Check. But somehow combines these culinary atrocities to form a beautiful symphony when done correctly. B tier. The Kubano, invented by Cuban immigrants living in South Florida, it consists of ham, mojo roasted pork, Swiss cheese, mustard, and pickles, all sandwiched in Cuban bread and pressed in a panini press. And yeah, this one never did much for me. I think it's because when you have mustard and pickles, two things which are both acrid and acidic, coupled with the ultra-thin bread, it overwhelms the palate with bitterness. And Swiss cheese, which is incredibly mild, doesn't stand up to that very well. It's unbalanced and definitely not a hit for me. Sorry, South Florida. D tier. The Chicken Biscuit. Yeah, I don't get it. I love biscuits and I love fried chicken, I just don't see what putting them together accomplishes. For me, it's a case of pairing things that don't need each other and don't make either one better. D tier. The Cheeseburger. Alright, now here we go. The American classic that needs no introduction, and it goes straight into the C tier. Alright, hear me out before you start throwing garbage. The cheeseburger, originally just the humble hamburger, was most likely concocted as a way for food vendors to stretch food and make more with less, as is keeping with many great food traditions like the meatball or meatloaf. Take some meat, throw in some fillers, boom, you got more meat. But what has changed in the century and a half since its inception? Well, for starters, the standard hamburger has become the standard cheeseburger, and from there people started making them bigger, adding every topping you can possibly imagine, from a fried egg to pulled pork. Then people started making them smaller, the smash burger, a burger cooked as thin as humanly possible, to the point that it's not even a patty anymore, just a thin sheet of beef that's fried in its own fat. But has anyone stopped to consider that maybe the burger isn't that good? That the reason why it's gone through so many iterations and evolutions is because, in reality, it just belongs in the C tier. The chicken salad sandwich. Severely underrated when done well, but rarely done well. If you've never had a chicken salad made with smoked chicken, or have made a chicken salad from one of those rotisserie chickens at the grocery store, you're missing out. Unfortunately, since most chicken salad out there is made using dry, obliterated chicken and mayonnaise, that averages it out to C tier. The Kentucky Hot Brown. Not a sandwich. Also, were you trying to give it the most disgusting sounding name in history? The Monte Cristo sandwich. Ham, turkey, Swiss cheese served between 2 slices of French toast and topped with powdered sugar and maple syrup. Not a sandwich. Also, what's wrong with you? The Bonme. Now, if you aren't familiar, a banh mi is a Vietnamese sandwich that most often consists of meat, usually roasted pork, veggies, usually pickled, mayo, and sometimes another sauce, on a toasted baguette. It has a fascinating culinary history stemming from Vietnam's colonial occupation by France, hence the use of the baguette, and it is magic. What I love about it is the definition of contrast. You get the richness of the pork, which is cut by the brightness of pickled vegetable, which is then counterbalanced by the mayonnaise, which is counterbalanced by the fresh, bright cucumber. And this is all nestled neatly within a flaky, toasty baguette. Truly one of the great sandwiches of the world, and while I've had some that were better than others, anytime you get your hands on a banh mi, you're in for a good bite. A slam dunk S tier. The pulled pork sandwich. This is a tricky one. Are we talking the Carolina pulled pork sandwich, which consists of pork that's been pounded into dust and topped with coleslaw, or the more common one, drowned in sickeningly sweet barbecue and topped with, onion straws? Fortunately for me, I don't think either is all that special. A lot of what goes into pulled pork is an attempt to hide the fact that pork shoulder doesn't really taste like much on its own. So that's going in the D tier. Peanut butter and jelly. Oh, geez, I don't know. It's not a timeless marvel of gastronomic innovation, but pairing the richness of peanut butter with the sweet brightness of a fruit preserve deserves a little bit of credit. And yet it's so simple that any child can and probably has made this for themselves. Yeah, B tier sounds right. The Doner Kebab, a global classic. Roasted kebab meat, veggies, and a yogurt sauce served in pita bread. This is a sandwich made entirely of things that I personally am never blown away by, yet when combined it forms something greater. B tier. Fried chicken sandwich. A piece of fried chicken on a bun with a couple pickles and sometimes a sauce. This is a hard one to gauge because once Popeyes changed the fast food fried chicken sandwich game, damn near everyone, everywhere threw their hat into the ring, and many of them are pretty terrible. A good fried chicken sandwich is usually made with a chicken thigh, while a breast, cutlet, tenders, or a patty fucking sucks by comparison. Based on what a good fried chicken sandwich could be, a high B tier. The muffalata, an absolute fuck ton of cured meat and cheese sitting atop a round loaf topped with an olive salad. Being a hoagie enjoyer, this sounds like it'd be right up my street. But the problem is that 1, the texture of the bread just isn't there, and 2, the proportions of a muffalata are all fucked up. It's missing the balance of a good hoagie. D tier. The Reuben. The Reuben is a sandwich I feel like I've given 100 chances to, but it's always failed to impress. You've got corned beef, sauerkraut, melted Swiss cheese, and Thousand Island dressing between 2 slices of rye bread. So you've got fatty, cheesy, sour, and sweet all in one sandwich, which should be a glorious thing. My biggest issue is the bread. Rye bread is just dry and hard, and it never seems to toast up particularly well. Like it's immune from not being stale. It just doesn't provide a pleasant eat. Maybe a pumpernickel would improve the experience for me, but yeah, Reuben, D tier. Cheese steak. Cheese, steak, fried onions, Italian roll, but way better than the sum of its parts. S tier. I was born in Philadelphia, so I'm extremely biased. Make of that what you will. Yeah, that's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm sure that barely scratches the surface of sandwiches in the world, so let me know what I'm missing in the comments, or don't. See ya.